there, my name is Caitlin Bandy and this is my channel Bandy's Books. It is February and today we are here to talk about my TBR for the month. If you're new to this channel, I usually pick a theme for my TBR every month. I pick between 15 to 20 books that fit that theme. I do it this way because it helps me to make sure that I'm reading different genres and challenging myself, and also because it helps me strategically move things off of my physical bookshelf by looking at what I have a lot of and getting through it. So usually I end up reading one genre for an entire month. This month though, something special is happening. I have a variety of different genres on my TBR and I'm so excited. I actually really enjoy switching it up and I'm looking forward to this very much. The reason that my TBR is a little different than normal is because here in the States, we're celebrating Black History Month. February is Black History Month, and in February we celebrate the accomplishments and the history of Black people, and we also celebrate the current accomplishments and art and culture as well. So in honor of Black History Month, I have decided that my whole entire TBR will be books written by Black authors. It isn't just Black authors from the United States or from Africa. There's Black authors from several different parts of the world, and I want to represent several different cultures and different perspectives. I'm very excited about the variety of genres. And I will say as well that in celebrating Black authors in February for Black History Month, I think that's nice to recognize people and celebrate the month, but I also think it's super important for us to continue to celebrate and recognize Black authors and other POC authors throughout the year. I know that, this is a moment for us to reflect on accomplishments, but also maybe a moment for us to also reflect on, continuing to read diversely throughout the year, making sure that we're acknowledging different voices and, using this as a moment to maybe learn and grow a little bit. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get into the TBR. The first book on my list is a book that I actually picked up back in October, and I didn't get around to reading it. Unfortunately, I just had too many books in my TBR and I wasn't the most organized. October was my first month doing this. So I have this book from then and I've been wanting to read it, so I'm gonna go ahead and get it done this month. That's The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. This book is about Emmanuel, and Emmanuel is living in the lands of Bethel where the prophet's word is law. It's kind of like a cult-like situation. Her mother married a man from a different race, and because of that they were kind of cast out. They were a once proud family and it was a disgrace. So Emmanuel does her best to worship the Father and follow the holy protocol and lead a life, that fits within the guidelines of this cult situation. But a mishap kind of leads her into a forbidden woods where she meets some witches, and these witches cause her to start questioning everything. She finds a journal of her dead mother, and it just shakes up her whole world. I'm really looking forward to reading this. I heard a lot of really good things about it in the fall when everyone was reading their spooky season books. So that is book number 1. Book number 2 is All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. This is probably one of my absolute favorite book covers on my entire TBR. It is just so beautiful. I love the cover of it, and then the back as well. It says, "Be bold and brave and queer." And it's just so pretty. This is about George's own life. He is dealing with getting bullied and visiting flea markets with his grandmother, first relationships, all sorts of different stuff, and it kind of talks about cultural criticisms, his passion for exploring intersectional identities, his own life, and it weaves questions of gender, masculinity, brotherhood, family, and Black joy. This book has actually been banned in several states in terms of schools and things because a lot of states unfortunately pursue policies that ban books that feature queer characters. I think that anytime books are getting banned, we should be heavily questioning why they're being banned. What is it? And I think we need to make it a point to read books when they're banned, because there's nothing that I think is in this book that is deserving of being banned. And I think books like this are very important because there's young men growing up that need to hear what this gentleman went through, and that this book might help them feel less alone in their own experiences. And I think banning it and preventing children access to it is foolish. I think, preventing access to books and access to education and access to different voices and stuff is like trying to prevent people from questioning things. We don't want you to understand anything in the outside world. We don't want you to understand anything different or outside of what this controlled narrative that we're offering is. And so we're not going to allow you to see different perspectives. And so I think, anytime that happens, we have to push back. Sorry, I didn't mean to get all tangential here. This brings that up to me. I know that there's been a spat of book bannings lately, and this is one that gets heavily banned. So I'm looking forward to reading this. I am probably going to be giving this copy away just because I love this book, and as much as I want to keep it, I think, like I said, I feel passionately about getting books that are banned out there, and so I want to share it and pass it forward. Next up is another book I'm super excited about. I got this last month. Barnes & Noble's was having a great hardcover sale, and I picked this one up. I've been hearing so much about it, and I'm excited. It's Blackout, which is a compilation of short stories by Danielle Clayton, Tiffany D. Jackson, Nick Stone, Angie Thomas, Ashley Woodfolk, and Nicole Yoon. I understand that this is like a series of romance or relationship related short stories, and if you're unfamiliar with the authors that I've just listed off on the cover, all of these authors are extraordinary authors who have written great young adult series, and they came together to do this compilation of short stories. I'm not usually a romance reader, that's not my typical genre, but in creating this TBR, I really wanted to make sure I was hitting a lot of different genres, and this was one book, even though it's romance, that I've been very excited about reading. So looking forward to this one. And then next up is a book I actually have already read. I'm shooting this on the 2nd of February. I started this yesterday and I completed it today. It was that good. I could not put it down. I was so invested, like from the get-go. And that's Ace of Spades, and that's by Faridah, Abike-lyimide. And this book, I didn't know what to think of this. I actually thought that this was a fantasy series. I don't know why, but for some reason that was the perception I had of it in my head. This is kind of an interesting mix of like a coming of age, some horror, and then a psychological thriller. It kind of reminded me of Get Out. It has that similar, really tense, horrific sort of a setting that's very much centered in racism and racial perception. It just is so ominous. I don't even know how to explain it. I was like at the edge of my seat the whole time I was reading it. When a book gives you a really deep, profound sense of anxiety, but like in a good way, where you're just like, oh, I have to know what's happening. That was this book the whole time. It starts a little slowly because it introduces you to a couple characters and kind of sets the scene, but once that like ominous, creepy feeling sets in, it never stops. It just builds and builds and builds and builds. It's so well done. If you take any recommendation off of this, I think all of these books are going to be excellent, but I mean, I'm just amazed by this one so far. It was definitely the right book to start the month out with, and I'm hoping that the rest of the TBR is going to follow suit. Next, I have 2 books by the same author, and this is a new author for me, though I am familiar with some of their works. I've heard excellent things about their writing. And that is, the first book is John Henry Days by Colson Whitehead. This book I haven't actually heard as much about. I found this one in a little free library locally a while back, and I've been meaning to read it for a while. This is about kind of a retelling of the story of John Henry, the black steel driver who died out racing a machine designed to replace him. It sounds like there's also some stuff about a disaffected black journalist on a mission to set a record for junketeering who attends the first annual John Henry Days festival. So I'm kind of interested in this. This sounds like it's going to have some history tied into it, and I'm not really sure what to expect from this one. And then the second one is the one that's like most popular of his works right now. It was more recently published, I believe, and that is Harlem Shuffle. I also found this in a little free library. I was stunned because this is just a beautiful brand new hardback cover, and I couldn't believe that I found it. This one is about Carney, an upstanding salesman of reasonably priced furniture. He is doing his best to make ends meet, take care of his family, selling, reasonably priced furniture. But occasionally his family member, I believe it's his cousin, Freddie, drops off things that are possibly stolen, pieces of jewelry, watches, things like that once in a while. And, he kind of looks the other way because he's got to make ends meet. His cousin Freddie ends up planning a robbery of an upscale hotel. Things don't go as planned. They suggest the shop as a place to fleece all the stolen items, and Carney ends up tied up in the middle of the mess. This sounds really good to me, and I've been seeing rave reviews of it everywhere. I think this cover is so cool. It's just so bright and colorful. It reminds me a lot of like a comic book, and I'm very much looking forward to this. After that, I have The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I was recently gifted this book. It was a random act of kindness through the group Literally Bookish. I was super, super excited about that because this is a book that I've been meaning to read for quite a while, and it's been on my to buy list, and to get it as a gift was very exciting. So this one is about a 16-year-old Star Carter. She kind of exists between two worlds, a poor black neighborhood where she lives and the fancy suburban prep school that she attends. Her best friend Khalil is killed by a police officer, and Khalil was unarmed, but of course, as we know from current events, after the shooting, he's vilified in the press. He's a thug, a drug dealer, all of this coded language to justify the killing of a young black man. And it becomes a national headline. Police have little interest in investigating the incident. Protesters take to the street, and Star's neighborhood becomes a war zone. What everyone wants to know is what really went down that night. She's the only person that has the answer because she's the only person that was there. But what Star does or does not say could destroy her community, and it could also endanger her life. So this book is very, very relevant to some of the things that have been going on here in the United States. Obviously, we've had just an epidemic of young black men being killed by police officers, and those murders have been unanswered. Few police officers ever have to own up to any consequences of it. Most of them face the same kind of treatment that this character in this book faces, where they're vilified and demonized for simply existing, walking down the street, buying a soda, hanging out with friends, things that you should never have to imagine your child getting shot for. And it just happens at an epidemic level. So this is obviously a very relevant book and relevant topic. So I'm looking forward to reading it. I mean, in the way that, it sounds weird saying you look forward to reading something that is going to be a difficult topic to read and a sad topic and something that's going to make you angry and frustrated. But I've heard great things about this. I know that it's going to be a really well-written book, and like I said, it seems very relevant with things that are happening in the world today. My next book is another book that has been on my TBR before, and I just haven't gotten around to reading it, and I don't know why, because it's one of my absolute favorite authors. That's The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi. This book is about a character named Hiram Walker, and Hiram is born into bondage, and his mother gets sold away. He's kind of robbed of all of his memories of her, but he's kind of gifted a mysterious power in return. Later, Hiram almost drowns in a river, and that power saves his life. The brush with death brings this urgency in Hiram and a daring scheme to kind of escape the only home he's ever known. And this is about his journey and his powers and things like that. Ta-Nehisi is one of my favorite writers. I've mentioned this on this channel before, but I saw this clip of him once talking about the writing process and what it means to be a writer and how you struggle. And if you can get 40% of what's in your head onto the paper, then you're doing really well. And I used to write quite a bit when I was younger, just little short fictional pieces, and I never had really aspirations to be a published writer or anything like that, but I felt that frustration of trying to figure out how to get the things in my head onto the paper. So hearing him talk about his own processes and his own struggles with getting his words to that place really helped me, and I've really respected him as his career has continued to grow. He's got several books out now, but I love his work. I love the things that he's doing, and I'm really looking forward to reading this. I've heard good things. And this was also Oprah's book club in 2019, which is, to me, an indication that it's going to be a good book as well. Next up is a book called Brujas, The Magic and Power of Witches of Color. This book is written by Lorraine Montague, PhD, and this was a book that I won in a Goodreads giveaway a while back. I've been looking forward to reading it. It is all about brujeria, which translates to witches or witchcraft in English. This book is nonfiction, and it talks about the different cultural traditions of witchcraft throughout the world in different cultures, and it focuses on witches of color specifically. So I'm really looking forward to reading this. I think the author is from Colombia, or she's a mix of Colombian and Cuban, and both countries have interesting traditions revolving witchcraft as well. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this and learning a little bit more. I don't know a ton about brujeria myself, so this is going to be quite the learning experience. And then after that, I have a book that I've been really looking forward to, and I was able to get through, from the backlist through Book of the Month. That is Sankofa by Chibundu Onuzo. And this book is about Anna, who has lost her mother. And as she's going through her mother's possessions, clearing things out, she uncovers a few clues about her father, whom she never knew. Student diaries chronicle his involvement in radical politics in 1970s London, involvement that eventually led him to return to Africa, where he became the president, some would say dictator, of a small nation in West Africa, and he is still alive. When Anna decides to track her father down, a journey begins that is disalarmingly moving, funny, and fascinating. I'm very excited about this one. I have heard really, really good things. I've been seeing it a lot, and it's been on my list. I finally was able to, like I said, get it through Book of the Month. And it's such a beautiful cover too. I really like the way that it looks. So I'm looking forward to this one. Next up is Stay With Me by Abike-lyimide. This book is about a couple in Nigeria, Yejide and Akin. They've agreed in their marriage that they will have a monogamous relationship. They will not participate in polygamy. And for 4 years, their marriage stays monogamous. But then she starts to deal with fertility, and even after doctors and healers and teas and cures, she's still not pregnant. She assumes that she's gonna have some time to deal with this, and then her in-laws show up on their doorstep with a new wife for the husband. And Akin doesn't really have any part in that. It's, his family that's bringing them, but it leaves Yejide jealous and angry and shocked, and she feels like she's in a position where now she's even more desperate to get pregnant. And this is the story of their marriage and how it deals with this. I have heard good things about this one as well. Same thing, another really beautiful cover. I love all the eye-catching colors on it. This sounds super interesting to me. I do not know a lot about polygamous cultures. I am not super familiar with marriage traditions in Nigeria. This will be kind of a learning experience for me. And I'm really curious to hear this character's story of infertility and how she deals with not only the pressure and the despair of infertility, but now having this other woman thrust upon her when she didn't want a polygamous situation. So I'm really curious about this one. It's going to be a good read, I think. After that, I have Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. Vivid free verse, award-winning author Jacqueline Woodson shares what it was like to grow up in the 1960s and 1970s in both the North and the South. Raised in South Carolina and later in Brooklyn, New York, Woodson often felt halfway home in each place and describes the reality of living with the remnants of Jim Crow and her growing awareness of the civil rights movement. So this sounds like it's going to be very profound. I know that it's been highly, highly awarded, and I am looking forward to it. Another beautiful book cover, and this one has the pages that are, I forget what this is called, but I kind of like it because it looks like an old-fashioned book. It's pretty cool. Next up is Noor by Nnedi Okorator. I was gifted this by my Secret Santa in December. super excited. I have read some of Nnedi Okorator's other books. I started the Akata Witch series, or it's called the Nnedi Script series, but Akata Witch is the first book. And I really enjoyed that, so I'm very much looking forward to reading this one as well. This features a character named Anwuli Okudili, who prefers to be called AO. AO stands for artificial organism. AO has never really felt natural, and that's putting it lightly. Her parents spent most of the days before she was born praying for her peaceful passing, because even in utero she was wrong. But she lived. Then came the car accident years later that disabled her even further. Yet, instead of viewing her strange body the way the world views it, as freakish or unnatural, even the work of the devil, AO embraces all that she is, a woman with a ton of major and necessary body augmentations. And then one day, she goes to her local market and everything goes wrong. So this sounds super interesting to me, kind of like a sci-fi fantasy sort of a vibe going on. Another beautiful cover and an author that I really enjoy. I'm very much looking forward to this one. After that, I have The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abike-lyimide. And this is also another book that I've just heard nothing but good things about. I posted a picture of my TBR to Instagram, and like the number one comment was that this book was one of the favorites of most of the people that commented, or not most, but a lot of the people that commented. Definitely this one, and there's one other book were the two most popular. And this book features a character named Adeyemi. She's 14 years old and living in Nigeria, and all she wants in life is an education. She's the only daughter of a broke father, and she's kind of a valuable commodity. She's been removed from school and sold as a third wife to an old man. Her life kind of just amounts to cooking, cleaning, taking care of the house. An unspeakable tragedy swiftly strikes in her new home, and she is secretly sold as a domestic servant to a household in the wealthy enclaves of Lagos, where no one will talk about the strange disappearance of her predecessor, Rebecca. No one but Adeyemi. As a yielding daughter, a subservient wife, and a powerless servant, Adeyemi is repeatedly told that she is nothing. But Adeyemi won't be silenced. She is determined to find her voice, in a whisper, in song, in broken English, until she can speak for herself. I'm really looking forward to this. This is another book that was a book of the month, and I usually tend to love the picks for book of the month. And I got this beautiful hardback cover. I think this is going to be really moving. After that, I have How Beautiful We Were by Mbolo Mbue. And this book is about a fictional African village named Kosowa, and it tells of a people living in fear amid environmental degradation wrought by an American oil company. Pipeline spills have rendered farmlands infertile, children are dying from drinking toxic water, and promises of cleanup and financial reparations to the village are made and ignored. The government is led by a brazen dictator who exists to serve its own interests. Left with few choices, the people of Kosowa decide to fight back. This sounds really interesting. I actually haven't heard that much about this book. I've seen a lot of it, pictures of it lately, because the paperback of it was just released, which is stunningly beautiful if you haven't seen the paperback. But I haven't seen that many reviews of it, and I'm not sure why. It sounds incredibly interesting to me, and again, very relevant, because situations like this occur worldwide, and oil companies, go into countries and take advantage of governments that don't value their citizens' safety, and they destroy the environment, and people suffer because of it. So I'm very interested to see what this book has to say. I think it's going to be another good one. Next up, I have a book that was on my TBR in January, and I didn't finish it in January, so I've slid it into February. That was Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. So this is about a group of sirens, particularly one siren named Simi. And she serves Mami Wata, and her job is to collect the souls of people that have died at sea. So, if somebody falls overboard and drowns, she collects their souls. In one instance, a young boy falls off of a ship, and she pushes him back up onto the boat. And that unbalances everything. It sends her world kind of toppling sideways, and she has to go on this journey to the Supreme Creator to make amends. She has to cross vengeful gods, treacherous lands, and legendary creatures, and risk it all to fix the balance of Mami Wata. I think this is going to be a really good book too. I've heard good things from the people that I know that have read it, and look, same thing, another beautiful cover. I just I can't get over how pretty the TBR is this month. So many beautiful covers. After that comes Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. This is the other book that when I posted a picture of my TBR that people were just like, that's such a good book. I had so many people tell me this was one of their favorites of 2021, one of the best books they've ever read, that they cried, all sorts of different things. So I have high expectations, and sometimes that shoots me in the foot, but I think in this case we're gonna be all right. Ike Randolph has been out of jail for 15 years with not so much as a speeding ticket in all that time, but a black man with cops at the door knows to be afraid. The last thing he expects to hear is that his son Isaiah has been murdered, along with Isaiah's white husband Derek. Ike has never fully accepted his son, but is devastated by his loss. Derek's father, Buddy Lee, was almost as ashamed of Derek for being gay as Derek was ashamed of his father's criminal record. Buddy Lee still has contacts in the underground, though, and he wants to know who killed his boy. Ike and Buddy Lee, two ex-cons with little in common other than a criminal past and a love for their dead sons, band together in their desperate desire for revenge. So this is going to be, I think, a very complex book, a lot of different issues, and definitely sounds like it's going to be a tearjerker to parents coming to terms with their children and their children's identity and the loss of their children and that revenge for their children. So looking forward to reading this. I think this is going to be really good. Okay. Next up is An American Marriage, and that's by Tayari Jones. I am buddy reading this with my friend Anna, the Sustainable Reader. You should go follow her on Instagram because she's amazing. We are buddy reading this throughout the first couple weeks of February, and then we do an Instagram live discussion of our book. And this one is about a couple who are newly met, Celestial and Roy. And after their marriage, Roy is accused of a crime, and they know that he didn't commit the crime, but it doesn't really matter because he's been accused and jailed for it. Fiercely independent, Celestial finds herself unmoored, taking comfort in Andre, her childhood friend, and Roy's best man at her wedding. As Roy's time in prison passes, she's unable to hold on to the love that has been her center. When after 5 years, Roy's conviction is suddenly overturned and he returns to Atlanta ready to resume their life together, Celestial is faced with a soul-wrenching decision. So, a lot of personal relationships and conflict here, and I'm looking forward to reading this. This sounds really good. Maybe not necessarily my most typical style of reading, but I think this will be a good book nonetheless. And then I have one of the Obama biographies from Promise to Power. I got this from my mom, I think, and there's quite a few biographies out right now about the Obama family. I know Michelle Obama's biography is out, and I really want to read that one as well. I am looking forward to reading this and learning a little bit more about President Obama. A fun fact, the first presidential election that I ever voted in was actually the election that President Obama was elected. And so for me, that was pretty historic as a young person seeing our country elect our first African-American president and seeing like the hope that the younger generation had with electing him and everything. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this book has to say about it, hearing some of, the behind-the-scenes stories and things like that. And the final book on my physical TBR is possibly the one I'm most excited about, and that is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This book also is just got such a cool cover that it's like so haunting. I feel like when I did my photo shoot for February, like this one, it just is so eye-catching and beautiful and like intense. The book is about Zeli Adebola, and she remembers when the soil of Orisha hummed with magic. Burners ignited flames, tiders beckoned waves, and Zeli's reaper mother summoned forth souls. But everything changed once magic disappeared. Under the orders of a ruthless king, the Magi were targeted and killed, leaving Zeli without a mother and her people without hope. Now Zeli has one chance to bring back magic and strike against the monarchy. With the help of a rogue princess, Zeli must outwit and outrun the crown prince, who is hell-bent on eradicating magic for good. This sounds so interesting. I love epic fantasies. I think this is going to be the start of a beautiful epic fantasy, and I cannot wait to read it. And then a couple books that are not on my TBR but will probably get read this month. I have book of the month order coming in a couple days, so it should be here, I think, within the next 5 days. And I got 3 books. It'll be Don't Cry For Me by Daniel Black, Behold the Dreamers by Mbolo Mbue, and In Every Mirror She's Black by Lola Akinmade Ackerstrom. All 3 of those books are books that I've been looking forward to reading. I don't know as much about Don't Cry For Me, but both Behold the Dreamers and In Every Mirror She's Black I've heard amazing things about, and I'm looking forward to reading them. I also have Palmares by Gail Jones on audiobook that I just got from the Libby app, so I'll be listening to that as well. I'm excited about that because it's set in Brazil. It's, you know, about some of the history in Brazil, and I'm looking forward to learning a little more. So that's my whole TBR, plus a few additional books that I might work in if I have some time throughout the month. I hope that you found this interesting. Maybe you found some books that you're interested in reading yourself, and be checking in throughout the month, obviously, and letting you know how things go. So if you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. Maybe comment down below and let me know what you're most excited about reading in February. And let me know if you plan out your TBRs like I do, or are you a mood reader and you just pick up books as you go. And if you're not already subscribed, consider hitting the subscribe button and maybe the notification bell if you really want to hear from me regularly. And if you do, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.